Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in for another Cruise with Smooth. Another week back at the grind. Before I get into it, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe if you like what you see. If you've got any questions or want to know my opinion on anything, feel free to leave that in the comment as well, even if it's something that I know nothing about. Again, feel free. I wouldn't mind doing a touch of research. Anyway, what I'd like to talk about, and I'm old enough to remember all this. I apologize for not citing anything. It's just the amount of hours that I put in a typical week that are spoken for by things I do voluntarily or on a volunteer basis, things I do, my job, my commute, my side job. It's tough for me to devote a lot of time to research and citing sources, but everything is out there. By the way, before y'all go getting concerned about my cough, yesterday I was out driving my old truck. Long story on that. I drove past a mowing crew where they were bush hogging the medians and the sides of the road on interstates and whatnot, and they were just throwing fresh coronavirus symptoms right into the air. It was fantastic, and I knew it was going to happen. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is simply protests. That's all I wanted to talk about. But I wasn't even going to get into the controversial aspects of the Black Lives Matter protests, where they have been known to turn violent or looting or riots. That's not what I was after. What I want to talk about today, there have been numerous protests around the country before George Floyd passed away, unfortunately, and in a tragic, unnecessary circumstance, and the officer should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But what was on my mind is the protests prior to that. There were protests at numerous state capitals, specifically the states that went into harsher lockdowns and had harsher lockdown orders. There were armed protesters outside the state capitals, inside the state capitals, outside of various chambers within the building, things like that. No one got hurt, no one got harmed, but if you listen to the news on that, that was going to, everyone in the groups, or everyone that came in contact with the groups or came head to head with the groups, such as law enforcement, was going to end up with coronavirus. That's basically what I remember hearing. They were portrayed in the dimmest of lights. Now, fast forward, and by the way, I don't recall that happening. I don't recall states being on the downhill slide of the curve, and then the riots or those protests happening against the lockdown orders and caseload going up. I don't recall that. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Then you've got the George Floyd protests. Again, from strictly a protest perspective, I'm 100% on board with that. Derek Chauvin acted like a sadist. And I've heard numerous people, including those that trained in martial arts, say that if I do that for that many minutes, the person I do that to dies, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's just the way it happens. And he wasn't getting into the medical, well, it was a heart attack brought on by due to a weekend thing. No, he's just like, if I put my knee on that dude's neck for 8 minutes, that dude is dead. Okay? Which I believe. But those protests happen, and everybody's kind of standing back. Well, a lot of people on the right are saying, well, now wait, if our protests were going to spread coronavirus, aren't yours? Seems like a reasonable comparison to me. And everyone's, no, this is systemic racism is a public health crisis more so than coronavirus. I don't buy into that, but you got a right to believe what you believe. So anyway, they protest George Floyd. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, there's a rise in case counts in these cities that had these big protests. That gets blamed on Labor Day. I just yesterday, I don't know how current it was, seen an article that stated that the spike in coronavirus cases could be attributable to protests. And I'm sitting there going, The reason why I say that, all the pictures that I saw, and I may not have seen all of them, when people were doing the anti-lockdown protests, which I wasn't a fan of anyway. Like, my whole take on it, I don't think that in my state, our state legislature is not in session, and so the governor's kind of, one of our state representatives went on Facebook or a radio show or something, I forget, and he was asked why he doesn't do something. He's like, we're out of session right now. There's nothing we can do. Because the calls for emergency session, there's nothing that they can do to get an emergency session going within the purview of the law. And so the governor kind of has free reign without his legislature right now. But I can understand protesting them, but I didn't. And I wasn't planning on it, even though I disagree with the way that some of these lockdown orders have come into effect. The governor in my state, he's able to fine people out of nothing. He hasn't passed a law. He hasn't done anything. He just, if this happens, we'll fine them. Give you a case in point example. Bars have been closed. Restaurants are down from 50% capacity down to 25% capacity. Indoor dining. Outdoor dining is at 100% so long as they socially distance. Gatherings of 10 or more on private property are banned, and you can be fined for that. Now, here's where I take huge issue with that. My sister lives very close to me. My mother lives with me in a mother-in-law suite. If my sister comes over for a Sunday afternoon dinner, due to the fact that I've got a rather large family, my sister has a bunch of kids, and I've got my wife and my mother there, we're over that limit, and we could be fined for that. I'm not kidding. So I think that that's being I think that that's stupid. And I think that he's definitely overreaching. You could argue that he's doing the best thing for the state, sure. But I think he's overreaching his authority, and I don't care if I like it or not. You do stuff by the book, or I don't like you, period. If Donald Trump did everything I wanted but signed it by executive order, I would hate it. Because that sets precedent for someone to come in that I don't like to do the exact same thing, to do everything he wants by executive order. I don't like executive orders when it comes to getting legislation done or when it comes to getting a policy agenda done. But anyway, the article that I seen the other day just now started blaming the spike in some cities on protests. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Anyone with a half-functioning brain would have seen that coming. And a lot of people did, and they were slammed on media for it because they weren't supportive of the narrative of George Floyd or Black Lives Matter. I think that stupidity is the lowest common denominator right now in our media coverage. So, anyway, I reckon I've gone on long enough. Whenever you watch the news, use a touch of common sense. If they tell you that this won't spread it, but this will, they're lying to you if it's the same thing. So, anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks for tuning in for another Cruise with Smooth, guys. I appreciate it. Hope y'all staying safe, doing okay. By the way, real quick, I was going to do a show of I'm No Expert with my buddy Danny, but he had some computer problems. He got the hardware fixed, but he's having software issues now. He can't, he's got a computer with multiple hard drives and he can't get it to boot up where he's got access to both of them, and he doesn't want to fill up his operating system hard drive with podcasts, so we've got to get access to it. Plus there's some old recorded shows tucked away in there that he's got to get access to. So anyway, it's coming, don't know when, but I'll be posting links in the description when we get those up. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it. Hope y'all stay safe. See y'all next time.